What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Children's Play Crash Bandicoot the Wrath of Cortex Part 10. This is the wrap-up video. This is where I will talk about the trivia for the game. Trivia information, and I'll give you my thoughts about the game and what I like about it and just different things like that. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and start with the information portion. So Crash Bandicoot the Wrath of Cortex is the 6th Crash Bandicoot game, but the 4th chronologically, and it was the first game to feature Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox systems. On the 4th of December 2007, the game was released onto the Xbox Live Marketplace as a downloadable game on the Xbox Original Service. The Wrath of Cortex is a platform game in which the player controls Crash and his younger sister Coco, who must gather 25 crystals and defeat the main antagonists of the story, in this case Cortex and his new super weapon Crunch, and Crunch's power sources, the Renegade Elementals. Much of the game takes place in a virtual reality VR hub system created by Coco to help Crash gather the crystals. I call it the Warp Room, and that's what I still call it today. You know, I know it is a virtual reality thing or hub, or whatever they call it, but I still refer to it as a Warp Room. No reason really. I just like Warp Room better, I guess, than a virtual reality hub, but it doesn't really matter. It is called a virtual reality hub system instead of a Warp Room. But anyway, so the VR hub system is split up into 5 VR hubs. Initially, only the first VR hub is available. Each VR hub has 5 teleportation portals to different levels. The goal in each level is to find and obtain the crystal hidden in the area. In some levels, the crystal will be located at the end of a level or must be earned by completing a specific challenge. After completing all 5 levels in a VR hub, a 6th teleportation portal to a boss level will appear. By defeating the boss, the next VR hub will become available for play. When all 25 crystals are located and Cortex and Crunch are defeated, the game is won. Crash and Coco start the game with 4 lives. Crash and Coco lose a life when they are struck by an enemy, attack, or suffer any other type of damage. More lives can be earned by collecting 100 pieces or breaking open a special crate to collect a life. Crash and Coco can be shielded from enemy attack by collecting an Aku Aku mask. Collecting 3 of these masks allow temporary invulnerability from all minor damages or all minor dangers, such as enemies and nitro crates. If Crash or Coco run out of lives, the game is over. However, the game can be continued by selecting yes at the continue screen. Each level, except for vehicle levels and levels 25 and 26, contain a bonus platform that leads to a special bonus area where the player must navigate through a maze and collect everything in sight. Once a bonus area is completed, it cannot be played again. Besides crystals, gems, and color gems, can be collected for 100% completion. Gems are rewarded to the player if all of the crates in a level are broken open, or if a secret area is completed. Colored gems are found in special levels and lead to hidden areas. Relics can be won by re-entering a level where the crystal has already been retrieved. To obtain a relic, the player must initiate the time trial mode and race to a level in the designated time displayed before entering a level. To begin a time trial run, the player must enter a level and activate the floating stopwatch near the beginning of the level to activate the timer. If the stopwatch is not touched, the level can be played regularly. The player must then race through the level as quickly as possible. Scattered throughout the level are yellow crates with the numbers 1, 2, and 3 on them. When these crates are broken, the timer is frozen for the number of seconds designated by the box. As no lives are lost in the time trial mode, the level can be played through as often as the player desires. Sapphire, Gold, and Platinum relics can be won depending on how low the player's final time is. The first 5 relics the player receives unlocks access to a secret level. Every 5 relics thereafter open up another level in the secret warp room. The levels in the secret warp room must be won before the game can be 100% completed. However, the percentage system gives 1% for every boss, crystal, gem, and relic. There are 25 crystals, 30 relics, and 46 gems, and 5 bosses, which gives a total of 106%. So a truly 100% game is 106% on the game screen. Once the game has been completed with a true ending, Crunch cannot be fought again. Let's see. Well, we already know about the VR hub systems and levels, so I won't read those again. All the levels and everything. The sales, despite mixed reviews, Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex sold quite well, especially the PS2 version, which made the greatest hits and sold over 3 million copies. The GameCube and Xbox versions sold fairly well too, but not as much as the PS2. The boss fights Crunch and Rocco in a style of the Altosphere levels, with Crunch in a much smaller, or with Crunch in a much larger Altosphere made of rock. Crunch and Wawa. Crunch is in water form and can attack using power beams. Crunch and Pyro in a style of chase and mech levels, with Crunch throwing flaming boulders at you. Crunch and Lolo. Crunch is a tornado and has a lot of power moves. Crash is in his glider. The final boss fight, Cortex does not attack you, but Crunch jumps on 4 buttons of an elemental's color, setting their powers. Rocco sends flaming rocks raining down on you. Wawa just sends a few ice cubes that freeze Crash for a second. The Pyro sets the floor on fire, so watch your feet. Lolo uses electricity that will come from the front and the back. The vehicles are the glider, Crash's glider and Coco's ship, the Altosphere, the minecart, the Jeep, the submarine, the Firefly, scooter, snowboard, the helipack, and the mech. Now if you remember at the start of the the start screen, there's a mini game called Crash Blast. You can unlock this by you have to follow 3 steps. You have to have a GameCube version of the Wrath of Cortex, have a GameCube to Game Boy Advance link cable, and a Game Boy Advance and a GameCube, obviously. What you need to do is, at the title screen, select Load Crash Blast, connect the link cable to the Game Boy Advance, select Load, and then let the game load up. What Crash Blast is a minigame exclusive to the GameCube version of The Wrath of Cortex. It was developed by Vicarious Visions. To access it, the player must connect a Game Boy Advance to a GameCube with The Wrath of Cortex in it. In this minigame, Crash is holding his fruit bazooka. The player must fire at jumping pictures of Cortex, Injun, Tiny, Dingo, and Uka Uka. However, if the player shoots Aku Aku, Polar, or Coco, they will lose a point. So they will lose points. Ammo is obtained by shooting crates. If the player runs out of ammo, they get a game over. This is only a GameCube a Game Boy game, so I won't be able to show it. Show off how to play it. You can't play it through the GameCube. It's only through the Game Boy Advance. Alright, so we'll go to the trivia now. Trivia: you can finish the game 106% by making a new game and typing in the name Wombat. This only works on the Xbox and GameCube versions. This is the only game in the Crash series that makes you battle the same exact boss over and over again. This is the only game in the main continuity that introduces masks other than Aku Aku and Uka Uka. This is the only main Crash game in which a cheat code in the form of the Wombat code can be entered or utilized. The racing games are not main continuity games and therefore don't count. And that is something that you have to think about. Crash does have a sort of main series storyline that follows from one game to another, and all of the spin-off games and like the racing games and party games and different things like that usually don't count, and a lot of the handheld games don't count as well. It's usually the console based games like this game, like platforming games, that usually count. If Crash is left alone for long enough, he will start to juggle one fruit, as you just seen if you're watching the video. Switch crates and nitro crates now count towards the crate count, something that they haven't done before. In the Altosphere levels, you can see the bosses of the PS1 games as the obstacles. Not much of a trivia, but if this is the first Crash game you've ever played, then you may not have known that those bosses were, or those characters were, bosses from the PS1 days. On the back of the case, it says that Coco was playable for the first time ever on foot. She was playable on foot in Warp before riding Purah, and was playable on foot in Crash Bash while in the Warp Room and the Crate Crush games. Of course, this doesn't say main continuity game, so, it may be just because they were trying to distance themselves from the Naughty Dog games. I really don't know. It doesn't really say. and I haven't heard a whole lot of info why they would say for the first time ever on foot. Maybe because she does a lot more moves than just jump and walk around like she did in Crash Wart. In Arctic Antics and all other snow-themed levels, whenever Crash stands on the moving bonus platform, he will start shivering after a few seconds. Wawa is voiced by Arlie Ermy, who is known for playing Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket and Sergeant from Toy Story, both movies. I guess two of his more famous roles. Pyro is voiced by Mark Hamill. Hamill is best known for his role as Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars franchise and the voice of the Joker in Batman, the animated series, marking the first celebrity voice role of the character in Crash history, as well as doing other voice acting. His big thing now is voice acting. That's what he's more well known for, and he does a lot of voice acting in video games and TV shows. Lolo is voiced by Jess Harnell, who was once the voice of rival mascot Spyro the Dragon in Spyro A Hero's Tale and Spyro Shadow Legacy, and is now the voice of Crash Bandicoot. In Twinsanity, Cortex says, well, the past few years were rather slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't go as well as we'd hoped. Coco is voiced by Debbie Derryberry, who also voices Jimmy Neutron in The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, and the Little Green Alien in the original Toy Story. In Crash's house during the opening cutscene to the game, a ringtone-esque recording of the Wrath of Cortex theme plays in the GameCube version before Aku Aku makes his appearance. In the PS2 American version, the music does not play, however, it does in the European PS2 version. In Tornado Alley, Coco can be heard saying, looks like Neo's using them to make the tornadoes. This marks the first and only time that Dr. Neo Cortex is mentioned by his first name. Originally, there was going to be a Dreamcast version of the game. Probably wouldn't have done that well. This is the first Crash Bandicoot game ever to verbally mention Aku Aku's name. The music published in the game does not loop smoothly. It only has a track with an end that loops. This is different from most video games who have the music looped in time with the beginning and the end. In the American PS2 version of the game, pressing select as you grab the stopwatch on Wizards and Lizards will teleport you to the end of the level. This does not work on any other level on the Xbox, GameCube versions, or the European version, European PS2 version of the game. Many returning characters received a dramatic makeover. Purah has whiskers, Uka Uka and Cortex are shorter, Tiny's eyes show only pupils, Aku Aku got more feathers on the top and is shaped like a... excuse me a second. Sorry about that. He's shaped like a trapezium trapezoid instead of a rectangle. When Aku Aku arrives at Crash's house in the introduction, he opens the door, but you can hear the door open about 1 second later. In Crash Tag Team Racing, the first battle arena is called Jungle Rumble, possibly a reference to level 6 from this game. Every chamber except the 5th and the hidden one has one level with a laboratory theme that represents the element of the boss. Compact Reactor is a lab inside of a cave and represents Rocco. H2O is an underwater lab and represents Wawa. Fahrenheit Frenzy is a lab inside of a volcano and represents Pyro. Wuthering Heights is a lab inside of a plane and represents Lolo. Level 13 is titled Smokey and the Bandicoot. This is a reference to the movie Smokey and the Bandit. Level 28 is titled Ice Station Bandicoot, which is most likely a reference to the movie Ice Station Zebra. This is the only Crash game to have Coco playable in 2 of the levels in the 4th and 6th warp rooms. The 4th level of the first warp room, Wizards and Lizards, was supposedly a reference to the Komodo brothers. Alright, so that's all the trivia and everything for this game. Well, my thoughts about it... I don't hate the game, but this is definitely my last... in my opinion, this is the last good console Crash game. Every other Crash game after that I didn't care for. I always liked earlier versions of it, like the next Crash game, the console Crash game that was made after this was Crash Nitro Kart. I prefer CTR better than Crash Nitro Kart. It is a racing game that took a lot of its style and design from CTR, but kind of made it better, I guess you could say, added more to it. Didn't really care for it. I prefer CTR over that. Twinsanity, ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know, like, a lot of games during that period was kind of had a rough patch. Like Spyro, A Hero's Tale wasn't as good as the older Spyros. This game, the Sonic series, while Sonic Heroes was a good game, it changed Sonic's design and kind of changed the gameplay style of what you had to do from previous Sonic games, as well as many other games kind of, had drastic changes. And so, a disaster, I don't care for Twinsanity at all. I won't be doing a Let's Play on it. This will be the last Crash game that I do a Let's Play on, just because I don't have any of the other games anymore. I've gotten rid of them as the years have gone by, and just kept the ones that I liked. Crash Tag Team Racing, didn't really care for. It's not really a racing game, a full-out racing game, because it has platforming sections and different things that you can do in the amusement park. So it's kind of different. The two newest games, Clash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant, I wouldn't even consider those Crash games. Like they totally changed the way that Crash is. They, instead of doing what this game does and what Crash 3 does in 2 and 1, it's turned it into a brawler almost. Don't really care for them. I like some of the handheld games, but because I can't play those, I don't really count them. I only usually count the console games, and so that's how I usually do it. For main series games, I'm just gonna talk about those really quickly. For the main series, is Crash 1, 2, 3, Crash Wrath of Cortex, Twinsanity, Crash of the Titans, and Crash Mind Over Mutant. So there's not that many main storyline games, and there's big gaps in between a lot of them, like Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex 2001, Twinsanity was made in 2004, Crash of the Titans 2007, and Mind Over Mutant was made 1 year later in 2008. But then you have the racing games, CTR, CNK, Tag Team Racing, Nitro Kart 3D, which is, I believe, an iPhone game, and Crash Bandicoot Nitro Kart 2, which I believe was another iPhone game. Party games, Crash Bash, Crash Boom Bang, which is a DS game, and what Crash Bash is. Handheld series, the Crash's Huge Adventure, Crash Bandicoot 2 Entranced, Crash Bandicoot Purple, Ripto's Rampage, and Crash Mutant Island. This is all for handheld games. And there's been several canceled games, but so all in all, I like some of the things that they did in this game. Having the ability to have masks underwater, really great. Having the ability to carry masks into the time trials, because you almost have to have 2 masks going into almost every single level to be able to get the a platinum relic. To be honest, I mean, you have to have the 2. You have to have 2 masks to be able to get a good relic. And I'm really glad they were able to do that. I'm glad you can have, I think I said 3 masks underwater. Definitely very, very excited about that. I don't like that they took away the speed aspect of having the masks, and I don't like that they reduced the range for them. They didn't make them quite as bad as Twinsanity. Twinsanity, you couldn't run into a nitro crate with 3 masks on your face. I mean, they were utterly useless. So I'm glad they didn't make it, go quite that far. But I'm just a little disappointed that that they made it so bad. The gameplay-wise, it's okay. It takes a little bit of time getting used to if you're playing the GameCube version like I am, it kind of gets used to the controls. I don't think there's any input lag. Sometimes the buttons, and I'm not sure if it's just the GameCube version itself or my controller, sometimes it doesn't work right. Sometimes if you jump, I don't like that they added that double jump that makes you jump a lot lower. The double jump isn't quite as high as it was in Crash 2 or Crash 3. I don't like that they took out the sliding spin that was in both of the Naughty Dog games, Crash 2 and 3. A little disappointed that they took that out. That was definitely a very good feature. You could run, slide, and spin, and you could get to an enemy pretty quickly. But Tiptoe, you know, you really don't use it all that often. I think you only use it maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the entire game, and the rest of the time it's just a useless thing, you know, just a gimmick almost. It's okay, you know, sometimes it's a little bit buggy, sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. Kind of weird like that, but all in all, it's a good game. You know, by now you should be able to get it pretty cheap online. I would definitely suggest getting it if you can find it pretty cheap. You know, it's definitely a good game. You know, they kind of took the basic concept from Crash 3, made it a little bit, made some things better, made a lot of things worse, but they kind of balanced it out pretty well. Definitely suggest you getting it if you can. But that's it. That's all the trivia and everything that I wanted to talk about this game. So, thank you for watching. As I said, this will be my last Crash game that I do for a while until they come out with a new Crash game. I won't be doing any more of the current Crash Bandicoot games that are out right now. I'm going to move on to the Spyro series next. And I'll do several games in the Spyro series, and then I'll move on to something else. So until then, later everyone.